give his Dogs back the lead. That should feed back. It feeds back. They like it.
Zach Guthrie, and then close again. Loving his handball to Hughes. It's another one. It's another one.
Desperate times for the Saints. Desperate measures. Hill over the top. One more. All the way home with Penny Ryder.
Hello, I'm Damian Barrett. Welcome to Access All Areas, brought to you by Sportsbet. We're now halfway through round 16 and the race for the 8 is well and truly on. And Matthew Lloyd, welcome. The Western Bulldogs are a live chance in that race after their nail-biter against the Eagles.
Massive win for the Dogs yesterday, Damo. I thought the Eagles had the better of them in the first quarter, but after that, it was all the Western Bulldogs, and they played like their season was depending on it, and I thought they were sensational, Damo, and there were some big moments late in that game, and Marcus Bontempelli, this hasn't been his strong point, Damo, in a lot of his career. It's probably been one of the weaknesses. We talk about Fife, we talk about Paddy Cripps, they're stars, but they can let themselves down with this aspect of their game, and absolutely nailed this one he did. That was a ripper kick.
He took it upon himself, didn't he, Lloyd? You can see the time and you can see the score. He knew he needed to kick that goal. Now, you can debate whether it was across the line fully or whether it wasn't. The umpire called it as a soft call that it was a goal. They did review it. They said it was okay. That was the reverse angle, which wasn't shown to the viewer at the time. But I don't know how you could overcall the soft call. I think it was the right call. I thought this was a dubious free kick to Jack Darling moments later. And he, unfortunately for the Eagles, and in keeping with what he has been known to do at crunch times, missed the goal.
Yeah, it was huge because top four was depending on it. There's still a little chance, but Adam Simpson after the game, Damo, admitted that they were outplayed and the Bulldogs were the better side in that one yesterday. And as I said, I'm pleased for the Bulldogs because I think their best is good enough to be in the finals, but and they've got a favourable draw, which we'll look at later.
They had to grind their way out through this game, didn't they? And the fourth quarter was where it came down to after they got off to a very slow start. That man on screen there, Tim English, was crucial, as he has been regularly in the Bulldogs' wins this year, but it was a typically gritty, ground-out Western Bulldogs win, wasn't it?
He would have been wrapped Tim English when Nick Naitanui pulled out late, so they've rested Nick Naitanui, and Tom Hickey was a good matchup for him, and he did pretty well around the ground. I thought Caleb Daniels' foot skills were phenomenal, and just some of the desperation, the axe. Here's Tim English again. That's when he's at his best, when he can drift back behind the ball. And we saw the Cordy tackle, which was sensational. English again, just big moments. And we're going to talk about their issues in front of goal shortly. But they needed English to really support the defence with Kennedy and Darling, who didn't have a huge impact on the game.
Yeah, they've got a couple of players with old-fashioned footy brains, haven't they? In Dunkley and Wallace, and Dunkley's tracking beautifully through an AFL career, and Wallace has rejuvenated himself for this particular year. They were crucial again yesterday, weren't they, Lordo? But it came because of the big men in Bruce and Norton not being able to fire again.
I thought Luke Beveridge coached well in that there's a saying, dirty ball. So dirty ball is when you just scrap the ball in. So don't put air on the ball, just get it low. And it sort of helped. They only kicked 6 goals to win that game yesterday, the Bulldogs, but they got 3 out of Wallace and Dunkley. But you just touched on the tools. I don't think they can go too far with the way Josh Bruce is playing. He's lucky to be still in this side. I think Shacky's been treated pretty harshly by Luke Beveridge, yet Josh Bruce gets played week in and week out. I think he's very lucky to be in the team. And then Aaron Norton, he's only kicked 11 goals from 9 games, and 6 of those came against the Adelaide Crows. So unless those two improve, the Dogs can't go too far.
Okay. They've given themselves, as we said, a live hope now for making the 8. You can see that they've got 2 matches left and some teams around them have got 3. How do you see that playing out with those 3 spots in the 8 being available for 5 sides, Lordo?
I now think the Dogs make it. They go to 40 points. They beat the Hawks and the Dockers. And the good thing for the Dogs is the Giants and the Saints have to play each other. And Melbourne and the Giants have to play each other. So, in my opinion, I think the Dogs make it. It's just who gets squeezed out. And I think the Saints should make it too on the percentage they've got. So, yeah, I think one of those sides like Collingwood probably at most, if they lose to the Power, I think in the last game, I think the Dogs take their spot.
Are you worried about the Eagles? The West Coast Eagles are a formidable force, but the East Coast Eagles are basically also rent.
Yeah, 3 wins and 5 losses, and they didn't lose a game when they were back in Perth, so I'm hugely concerned about them. I think they play a game style which is a high possession game, and in the conditions on the Gold Coast, they don't favour that. It's slippery conditions, it can get dewy over night time, so yeah, I don't think, Damo, they can win the premiership this year, the West Coast Eagles.
So you've got to line through them.
I've got a line through them now that they will unlikely play. They might get a final if they finish 5th at home, but I think on neutral territory, they've shown that they're not good enough to beat Richmond. They're not good enough to beat the Western Bulldogs. I know they get some quality players back, but I think they're about the 3rd, 4th seed at the moment.
The Cats are on a brutal surge at the moment. 6 wins in a row, 8 of their past 9, 11 of their past 13. They did an absolute number on the Bombers yesterday.
I love what they're doing. I think that Chris Scott, he's been maligned a lot, and they were playing a bit of a style like the West Coast Eagles, and it was slow and it was measured, but now they can do both. They're defending really, really well, but it's just the way they can move the ball. And, someone asked me about this game and I said, as bad as the Bombers were, the Cats were good. And I just think that the confidence and the strength and the power that guys like Dangerfield, Duncan and Hawkins are playing with, but then the depth players like Dalhouse and Menengola and Guthrie have been brilliant. Damo, this is the disastrous first half. That was as bad a half of football as you'll see. 12 goals to 2, smashed in disposals. Look, how do you give a team 60 marks? You try and keep a team to under 80 marks, and they've given 60 marks to Geelong in the first half and then out-tackled. The Bombers have got no respect in this competition anymore, and that hurts me to say that from where I'm at, Damo, and where my heart is as an Essendon person. But who are they? What's their brand? What do they stand for? They've become a bit of a laughing stock of this competition. It really hurts me to say that.
For you to ask who they are and what they stand for, Lloyd, you don't use those words lightly. And I know that there's a lot of Essendon people who use you as a go-to person when it comes to the problems that club has now had for a long time. For you to say that today suggests to me that you are now at a loss as to where they're at.
Yeah, I am, because I look it down and, since round 6, they've beaten Adelaide, Hawthorn and drawn with the Suns, smashed by Brisbane. Smashed by the Western Bulldogs, smashed by St Kilda, smashed by Geelong, and then they've lost to Richmond, GWS and West Coast. So they just don't beat anybody of note, Damo. And I think it's just becoming really tiring for Essendon people who have waited and been patient for a long time. And yet you hear John Worsfold yesterday say, we're 3 pre-seasons off Geelong. No, you're not, John. Your team has been nowhere for so long. Why keep making those excuses? Put your hand up and say, we've got so far to get. And, I look at Port Adelaide, I look at Brisbane. They're all said enough's enough over the years and they've got somewhere, whereas Essendon seem to wallow in mediocrity time and time again.
Well, there's little things, and some people may view what we're about to show as one of those little things, but I think it's a bit more significant. We go to half-time. You can see the scoreboard on the screen here when the Essendon players, for some reason, think it's timely to have a bit of a laugh and a joke. Now, I can understand a good team doing that, but I don't get Dyson Heppell there being the captain of that club and see the score, 75-16. One of those goals that they kicked in that second half basically came after the halftime siren or thereabouts on it. They were 10 goals plus down effectively, Lotto, and they're laughing. There's
a time and the place, and that wasn't the time for that, And the question is being asked, are they bringing another Rutten and Carousel are bringing another Richmond idea where Jack Higgins tells a joke at halftime? You're not Richmond, you're the Essendon Football Club, and we used to have a great identity at that club, and that all has been lost. So it's time, that they get their act together, both off the field and on the field, to try and right the wrongs, because it's becoming really tiresome.
Yep. Well, you'd put a line through West Coast. I'm putting a line through the Brisbane Lions, premiership hopes, if they cannot get Harris Andrews back for some key finals. He went down against Collingwood in the most recent match that they played on Friday night. And the problem for them is it's a nasty type of hamstring. It's now a 5 to 6 weeks ruling on that particular situations, which will get him back for a prelim final potentially if it's a 6-week injury. Now, they've had some low scores in recent times. Importantly, they are winning. I don't think they can continue that winning sequence without Harris Andrews.
I can't argue with any of that, Damo. When you're kicking 7, 6 and 6 goals and your defence is holding you together, it's because of Harris Andrews. And I know Darcy Gardner's a good player and Birchall and all those guys, but they're not Harris Andrews. So I'm with you. I see it hard to see how they can win the premiership now with Andrews out for 5 to 6 weeks.
Keen to see what it's done on the premiership market. And to do that, let's go to Nathan Brown of Sportsbet.
Yeah, thanks, Damo. It's going to be hard work for the Brisbane Lions without Harris Andrews being able to stop goals. We've always thought that maybe they're not going to be able to kick enough goals come finals time. So, punter confidence low on the Brisbane Lions at the moment, but they still backing the Tigers. Even with all the issues they've had, they are still putting the money through the Richmond Football Club. So too Geelong. They are coming hard. They were brutal against the Bombers yesterday. Port Adelaide, still value at $8. They haven't moved off that $8 quote for some time. You'd think with 2 games to go, they finish on top of the ladder, potentially 2 home finals for Port Adelaide. Value, a big price for the Saints at 67. Now, the Brownlow medal, Lachie Neale, I don't think he voted against the Magpies. Still had big numbers, but he's gone from $1.45 into $1.30 this season coming to end. So it's closing up. Travis Boak, 2, maybe even 3 votes. He is voting consistently this year, Travis Boak. He's the danger. Good luck, gamble responsibly, and Damo, I hope you're getting some sun up in that hub.
No time for sun, Brownie. Full-on work up here. Lordo, the Saints did, in my eyes anyway, exactly what they had to do against the Hawks, got the win that they needed to keep their finals hopes alive, and I had no problem with how they went about their task. After a free-flowing first quarter, they were forced to grind it out after that.
It was always going to be a danger game. The Hawks coming off such a shocking loss to the Adelaide Crows, and no Tim Membry, and then Max King pulls out late in the game, or before the game even started. So they had to manufacture goals yesterday, and I'm with you. They just found a way to win when they got off to a terrible start. Paddy Ryder, Rowan Marshall, Bradley Hill was back to his best. So talking about Rowan Marshall, well, Rowan Marshall, I thought, stepped up big time yesterday. I thought Ben Long off halfback and Rowan Marshall in the forward line, Damo. So what a player they've got. He's not. There's a lot of ruckmen around the comp who only win 6, 7, 8 disposals, but this guy he'll get 20 in time. He took 9 marks yesterday and can kick goals as well. So got a superstar in the making.
He came of age last year, didn't he? And strangely enough, there were some people at that club who weren't, even at this time last year, aware of how good he seemingly was going to be. And yet, I know you were a big fan of his when he did emerge last year. It's come to fruition this year. They've got a serious talent, haven't they?
They have, Damo. They've got an absolute talent on their hands, second in the best and fairest last year. Damo, I want to talk about Alistair Clarkson, who has been seen as a whinger all year. It looks like a man that he hasn't got the talent that he wants. He's used to winning. He's losing consistently. He made these comments yesterday, and I want to get your thoughts off the back of them because you've been very critical of him for most of this season.
They were playing an interesting game where it's just like a game of keepies off, really, especially in the second quarter. I think they took 42 marks and kicked 1 goal. So they might be able to get away with it against us. I don't think the method itself is going to lend itself to kicking a lot of goals. So in terms of trying to win big games and score heavily, it'll be interesting to see whether that works for them in the long run.
And Brett Ratton, I felt, responded to that with the disdain that it probably needed, as in, you just look after your stuff, Clarko, I'll look after mine. And I felt, Lordo, that Brett Ratton did exactly what he had to do yesterday. The game was free-flowing in the first quarter. He then just needed to win. He had to manufacture and model a game plan that worked. Now, he modelled that game plan against the team sitting third last on the ladder, Hawthorn. Sometimes good teams have to tailor their game plans to play differently against the lower teams. And I don't know what game Clarko's playing this year. He's been sooking about opposition players with staging. He's been sooking about umpires' adjudications. He's been sooking about the national draft now being disadvantageous to where his club is at. And I don't see any grace at the moment from a man who should be showing some, given how successful he's been and how good he's been over a long time.
I'm with you, Damo. When we saw that Hardwick realised the mistake he made when he spoke about John Longmire's game plan, which Clarko seems to, every time they lose a game of football, I don't know if he's deflecting or he's just a frustrated man, and he'll say, I'm just being honest. But yeah, I don't think you speak about another team's game plan the way he did yesterday.
Yep. Port Adelaide, again, similar to what St Kilda did against Hawthorn, got the win against North Melbourne. It came to cost. Zach Butters, who is putting together some sort of career in the 2 seasons he's been in the game, did this on Jai Simpkin. Now, look, it's a spur-of-the-moment thing. There's no malice intended there, but it was crude, and he's been given a 2-week suspension, which will allow him to play in the first week of finals.
Biggest error he made there was he needed to lay a tackle, and he went for a bump. And that's a mistake you make. It's a spur-of-the-moment, split-decision thing you do as a player. But I'm like you. I likened him yesterday to a bit of Toby Green about him there. He hasn't got the record of Toby Green or anything like that, but he plays it hard. He plays on the edge. He's going to cross the line sometimes, but they've got an absolute gem in Zach Butters.
Giants are doing similarly to what they did last year, Lordo. They're just getting enough wins to get into the 8. Now, we know what they've done for 4 years in a row. That's make finals and win a final. I still think they can do that this year. Do you?
But what you're saying, is that good enough, winning a final though, Damo?
It's not when you're coming off a grand final, is it? I suppose is to your point, and you've had the slows on them all year. I think it's right that you have had them on. Do you see them getting past an elimination final?
To me, they just look like an average side that is just scrounging and scrapping wins. So they're just not kicking enough score, and they've got the talent there in terms of their forward line, but that wasn't a great performance on the weekend. And if it wasn't Carlton they were playing, and they were playing a team probably ranked in the top 8, they would have lost that. So I can't see them going too far.
If they are to do anything, they need their good players to step up. Lockie Whitfield, I think he's put together another really good season of footy, Lloyd. You can just see with this vision here that he's pretty spent in this contest in the Carlton forward line. That's him. We're going to circle in a moment, hands on hips, and he does look pretty tired there. But you'll see with the ensuing play thereafter that he does run the length of the ground to help create a goal for his team. A
lot of people talk about Brad Hill being the best runner in the game. This is phenomenal running. So imagine trying to play on this if you're the half-forward flanker trying to stop it. It's unstoppable. Some will say he's taking a bit of a risk here, but this is why Lockie Whitfield will be All-Australian. He gets in and he shepherds for the player. So he's gone length to length, and that was just magnificent from Whitfield. And again, out of a disappointing year so far that's been for the Giants, he's been one of the standouts.
Yep. OK, we've put a line through West Coast today, Lordo. We've put, I suppose, an asterisk line through the Lions with Harris Andrews' availability. Do we put one through Richmond as well, given the litany of problems that they've had to endure off-field this year? The latest being, obviously, the Sydney Stack and Callum Coleman-Jones issue up here on the Gold Coast.
No, they're my number 2 seed, I should say. I think Geelong are the best side in at the moment, but we'll see on Friday night. Geelong v Richmond is just going to be a sensational game, and Port Adelaide are my number 3 seed. But no, I think they've just got an amazing ability to not let these distractions affect them on field. But time will tell, because some will say they've got ahead of themselves, they've got a bit comfortable, and maybe the success has gone to their head. I just think it's been a bit of bad luck for them. What do you think, Damo?
Yeah, again, the fact that both those players were outside the starting 22 in the week it happened, I think from a footy component that it's probably game on. They've certainly endured all the problems of this year form-wise without too much of an issue. And I tend to agree with you, but I reckon they're only one infringement short of it being a real problem, because we know then that does affect the club through premiership points and draft picks. And obviously premiership points would bring them down the ladder if that infringement was to take place in the next 2 weeks. Lordo, you love a Falcon. You're on the lookout regularly for them. You had to go off-field to find one this week, and we can laugh at this because the guy in question is okay.
Yeah, you love a Falcon when it's not you that gets hit in the face. And this is the cameraman. I'd love if it was Jace here who's recording behind the camera now at the moment, if he was hitting the head like this. But amazing here that the headset has fallen off there. But this cameraman, he's brave. He's not like the tennis umpire there with Djokovic at the US Open overnight. He's got courage, he's tough, and he wore it pretty well.
How is Jace down there today?
He's pretty happy with his mention there, to be honest. So.
Hey, Lordo, thanks for doing this today with me up here on the Gold Coast Quarantine Hub, and you back there at Docklands. And thanks for watching Access All Areas.
Thanks so much.
That probably went as well as it could have, didn't it?
Open. I won't